Good day, my name's Todd Stanley. I am the man who takes people out into the field and has them either live interact with their eyewitness of Sasquatch. Thank you very much for tuning in to my Throwback Thursday video. I am going to get personal today. Today, I'm going to talk about things I've never discussed before. I've realized that all this research, all this knowledge, all this understanding I've acquired over the years really has to get out there. I tell this to expeditioners. I teach this stuff to expeditioners. It's so important that when we go out to get this success, we have to do it together. There has to be a level of cooperation. That's why I'm selective about who I take out with me. And we have such tremendous success over and over and over. It's mind-blowing. I show people Sasquatch. My numbers are ridiculous. It's over 1 in 3 people I take out see a Sasquatch. Over 80% of people, it's almost at 90% of people I take out, have a live interaction with Sasquatch. I mean, those numbers are incredible. And I'm going to show you the very intricate details, secrets that have led me to get to this position where I can do this with a group of Sasquatch. So you can too. Anybody can do it. Here it is, all laid out. Stay tuned. It's all coming up in this episode, my Throwback Thursday, about what it's taken for me to get here, what it's taken for me to get these videos, how I've had success with Jeff Meldrum, Survivor Man. It's going to be here in a great big huge chunk. The learning process begins. I want my expeditioners to watch this before they ever come out with me. Let's get into it. Here we go.
Masters of civilization, my people, sure could learn a lot from the masters of the wilderness, which is who they are.
There's no way that you got sight of a Sasquatch in those areas with those tree breaks, with those tracks, getting those apples taken, with those sounds, all these things.
Thank you for tuning in. First thing I'm going to tell you about is the ancient story about Sasquatch and the Native American First Nations people. So this is what my teacher told me. This is what all the Native people that are in understanding that the Sasquatch are the teachers of nature, the wild masters. They understand this story, and it gets way more intricate than this. This is how it all begins. So the Native story goes, a long time ago, the Great Spirit came to man and came to Sasquatch and said, I have a gift for you. It's called fire. And this fire represents technology. And this fire will keep you warm, light you up at night. It'll give you all these things. It'll cook your food. It'll do all this good for you. It'll protect you, keep you safe, keep you warm, do all these great things. However, fire represents technology. And technology removes you and separates you from the wilderness. And once you go down that path, you can never go back. People may have forgotten that story, but the Sasquatch know it firsthand. They live it, they breathe it, and they're very aware of it. And I've seen this over the years of my research very, very clearly. I've seen it in how people stare at phones all day, and people are worried about the time and their bills and their all these little technological things and all these civilization things that have thoroughly domesticated us. Even people like Survivor Man, and as much as I'd like to get back into the wilderness, I've been domesticated to the point where I literally can't go back. And you need to understand this when you offer Sasquatch something as a gift, when you offer them, like, let's say as an example, there's an axe I have way up on the top of the holy spot where I do where the Sasquatch do spiritual animal rituals, where Survivor Man filmed the top of the head of a Sasquatch, the most holy place I know that the Sasquatch have. Years ago, I dropped an axe up there on the trail the Sasquatch used to go up and down that mountainside. They have literally made a trail around that axe. They literally fear that axe, fear that little piece of technology to the point where they walk 5, 10, 15 yards around it, not even to get close to it, not even be tempted to it. Because the Sasquatch love, adore, and treasure the wilderness. They have gifts and connectivity to nature in which I don't think any human being will ever understand in my lifetime, not even probably in my son's lifetime. Walking around barefoot, feeling the energy, understanding how the frequencies work and how nature connects us all and how they live in perfect equilibrium. They know if they ever accept fire or technology or a gift or some little metal thing or some tool, once they go down that path, they can never go back. Really understand that. All the Sasquatch know this story. My teacher told me this. So something for you to ponder and think about when even understanding that the Sasquatch love nature, man. They love it. They love the trees. They don't like trails. They don't like anything man-made. They love the creeks and the rivers and the mountains as they are. It's wonderful. And you think you know freedom? You will never know freedom like a Sasquatch. They rely on nature and the wilderness. It's their home. It's their blanket. It's their source of everything. And that is something you really have to think about, how they're the opposite of everything we are. You have to think in an absolute opposite way. I like to walk down trails. I like to use trails to follow around. The Sasquatch stay off them. It's predictability. It's domestication. It's what the deer and the prey use. They don't walk down that. They like to hide in the bush. Dense bush, it's like a blanket that they love and nurture. It keeps them and protects them and hides them. Only the highest level of wilderness expert can move through those trees and those branches and that deep, dense bush and use it so constructively in a perfect, amazing way like they do. So that's the first thing that I start to teach. It's the first thing that my expeditioners need to know. So second part we'll get into is I want you to have a look at this photograph. This photograph is very important to me because it represents something that happened to me a long time ago. That, again, another story I tell my expeditioners about before they ever come on expedition with me, because it leads into a time where I made a lot of mistakes. It was after I'd filmed and had tremendous success with video 5. So that's my Jake video that I'm showing you right now. And I was really versing them a lot back in those days, and using like what is like a hex suit. At the time, I had made myself what I called a ghillie cloak, or Gigantopithecus cloaking device to hide myself from the Sasquatch. I was really trying to verse them a lot, and I was doing different things to get into their habitat, and it was hard, and it didn't feel right, and it wasn't working good. So I first learned my big, huge lesson, mistake. So we learn from our mistakes. I certainly learned from this one. So I was up on the top of Radium, where I've taken Survivor Men, in that very holy place, spiritual animal place. And I'd been there it was my second expedition. The first expedition yielded nothing. And this one, so I'd had a 7-day expedition up there where nothing had happened. Went home for about 3 weeks, came back, was on another 7-day expedition, hella backcountry, middle of nowhere, sitting on top of the mountain. And something, if you've ever gone out on expedition alone, Survivor Man talked to me about this. In the first 48, 72 hours, something changes in you. You go through this metamorphosis. It happens every time, where you get this feeling of anxiety and separation and fear, of loneliness. And once you break that, you get this state of Zen that I was in that really had me forget about Sasquatch. I was just up there loving nature, loving the wind, feeling the animals, the trees, the beauty of it all, just loving it. And I felt really free and wonderful. And in that moment, just seemingly out of nowhere, a great big huge, what I felt was a gray Sasquatch, or elderly gray Sasquatch. He was elderly, I feel, because his legs were slim, his arms were slim. He was still tall, he was still big. But he looked like when I see men get into their 60s and 70s, where their legs get slimmer, their upper body gets slimmer, a little wrinkly. So I saw that in him, and that's why I brought up that picture that I just saw, because that picture is grayish. The guy I saw was more gray, and then with bits of white in him. But he was that size. That's why that picture just brings this whole incident to mind. And what happened was, so I saw this Sasquatch, and he had his back turned to me, mostly. And he was like what I called fake foraging. He was moving towards me. He was touching the ground. He was picking up little bits of fake. There was nothing really to eat there. And he looked like the energy coming off him was like happiness. And I saw him from the side view. I saw him stand up. This went on for, gosh, I couldn't tell you how long, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a half an hour maybe, where I was in this incredible state of Zen, and I had this profound connection to this amazingly spiritual being. It was very, very powerful, very, very connected. And it was wonderful. I'll never forget it as long as I live. It's probably the most amazing Sasquatch interaction Not even probably. That's the best I've ever had. I was in a state of Zen. He came to me out of nowhere. I wasn't thinking about the Sasquatch. And he just showed up and he was moving towards me. And it felt like there was going to be a huge paradigm shift in my whole life. It felt like he was going to lead me somewhere. I could feel other Sasquatch around. Actually, even since then, I felt like he was going to lead me off to a troop and there was going to be this connection. I'd gone through so much to get there. So many layers of spiritual animal rituals and you know, so much of the interactions I'm not going to talk about right now. So much stuff I could layer this with. And it's like I earned my place there and it was my time to go to that next level. However, I wasn't ready for it. I had made an enormous mistake in that he had his back to me and he was so close. He was probably 10 yards away from me. Again, he felt so happy. He wasn't smiling. I was smiling ear to ear. I was in absolute state of Zen, elation, illuminated, connected. I felt this individual's happiness, like his joy, his bliss, the amazing depth of character that was his. But the domestication, the stupidity, whatever you want to call it in me, the greed came out in, I thought, man, I have to get footage of this. And all I did was I came out of that state of Zen. He couldn't see me. He had his back to me completely. And I looked over at my camera and I go, I gotta reach for my camera before he notices something. And immediately what happened was, you see this? This is a handprint from a Sasquatch. He took, that's how big their fists are. This is a cast from Jeff Meldrum. I'm very convinced this is a Sasquatch bump in the ground. He took a fist that big. And I remember suddenly I felt hostility and disappointment in him, and he banged the ground, boom, and he got angry. And I thought, whoa. And I saw him take a different stance, and I felt all this different energy, and I was confused because there's no way he could know what I'm thinking. There's no way he can feel that I'm trying to deceive him or play a game with him. He's not that smart. Okay, so what do? I continue to reach over for my camera, and he stands up. And I think, well, he's just standing up. He couldn't possibly be feeling what I was thinking. And he bashes a tree, bang! Why is he so angry? He couldn't possibly know that I'm going to deceive him and take some video of him. He couldn't possibly have that ability to connect to me in that way. Keep reaching for the camera. I reached for the camera, turned the damn thing on, and he walked off out of my life to date. And this happened, oh my gosh, 2014 approximately, just off the top of my head, 2015 maybe? Yeah, about 2015. So, what happened? Go home, think about it. You think about it. What do you think happened? In the years that followed, I've begun to understand how energy is important, how energy is connected. And I want to go into a sequence here that I'm going to show you right now about how important the energy is when you're interacting with Sasquatch, and real profound. This is one piece of evidence I'm going to show you guys on an expedition that happened this year in 2021, or just this past year. But you really need to think about how important these chain of events are. So let me set it up for you. We're out on expedition 2022 or 2021, and with James, Gabrielle, Chantel Van E, and Todd Standing. And we are out in the forest, and this is probably the third time we've had apples taken, but there's a little kick to it, a little twist that happens in here that's so important. So watch this, and I'll be back in a second to explain.
They play with that one a bit.
Okay. So I just noticed from a distance as we approach it from a different angle that the apples on this first tree were taken. I saw from a distance that these apples were taken as they were before. Came up here very cautiously to make sure there's absolutely no sign of a bear whatsoever. I was concerned about that, especially when Chantel came up here and told me that the little rock was knocked off of here. The headpiece was knocked off, and this was moved. I'm thinking not Sasquatch, because this is like holy, reverent, wow.
I took a before and after picture.
But so to stop and interject here real quickly, because I don't talk about it anymore, this is the top piece of a structure of 4 rocks that was left for us. I've talked about it before. I'm not going to get into that too much here, but this was touched and balanced on 4 rocks by a Sasquatch. An amazing, wonderful, brilliant gift. We'd even I'll tell you quickly, I left it out there. I didn't know what to do with it. because they were taking apples from us. All the expeditioners knew it. We put out apples, went back, saw the apples were gone, and multiple people witnessed with me the fact that this beautiful little structure was right in the middle of where the apples were being taken from us. And then I had some conversations. So I went away, I went away for a week, came back on the next expedition 2 weeks later, and saw that the structure had been a little bit bumped or by a squirrel, or I don't know, maybe wind knocked it over. It was very, very fragile. When I ended up taking it down with me, it couldn't even lift it out. I had to take a picture of it and now rebuild it. But and I also decided to take it with me, obviously, because it snows like 3-4 feet out there. So this structure that you could literally just tip with your finger would have been washed away with the snow piling on it and then melting away. So obviously I had to take it with me, and I did take it with me, and I'm very grateful for it. And this is just one of the many incredible, amazing, awesome, fantastic things that's been going on in Radium. So let's watch more of that video. Let's get back to it. I don't know what would... It seems strange to me that a Sasquatch would bump or move this in any way, shape, or form. Maybe a squirrel did or something. I don't know. I got to think about that. But I've confirmed with 100% certainty there's no bear marks anywhere. There's no bear tracks anywhere around here. There's absolutely no bear sign. Not just on this tree, but especially on this tree. So we left 15 apples. So not a single scratch. This tree would leave marks from a bear big time. He would bust these branches. These little pieces would be broken. That would be broken. There'd be marks like crazy. Gabby put apples way up there. So what also tells me no chance it's a bear. You can see over here, my colleague and friend James left a couple apples. And whenever I tell people to leave apples, I say, give it as a gift with nothing you want in return. Put it out there with your heart and just give it that way. My friend James said very clearly, hey everybody, look at the sphagnum moss over here. I bet if I put apples up here, they'll leave tracks. That was not with good. That was a little game he's playing. He wants to play a game. He wants them to leave tracks. If you leave things without those kind of intentions, this is my theory anyways, without the right kind of intentions, just to give a gift, just to say, I'm a visitor here, this is your home, and I'm asking you for permission, I'm giving you a gift so I can do stuff and stay stuff here. If you don't give with that intention, they don't take. So that's a theory I have. One fact you cannot deny is if a bear came over here, he found those apples, and he walked over here and found those apples, he's sure as shit gonna find these big red apples sticking out like a sore thumb.
What is that?
You know?
15 feet high?
Yeah, 15 feet up in the air.
My height plus your height plus my arm reach.
And everybody in the crew over here will nod when, what did Todd say? Did Todd say the apples are going to be taken today?
Yes.
And you know why Todd said that? Because Todd heard a boom, and nothing goes boom in the bush but a Sasquatch, and I heard it back over this way. That alone made me wake up and go, the apples are going to be taken. They came here. We've been good and honest and true. Everybody's out here with a good heart. These are all good people. And they took the apples from us, except James being a little bit sneaky. I want to ask James about that, though. So, do you agree with my assessment?
Well, all I can say about that is that you had told me before they don't want to be tricked.
Right.
And so, to me, that's profound evidence that it is so, because there's every other apple that you guys put up is gone.
Right.
And mine are there. So I feel a little foolish in doing that.
Not at all.
I actually learned a good lesson here that you have to do it with your heart.
That or
Thank you.
Woo!
I wasn't ready for that one.
I just couldn't hold it back anymore. I'm so excited. They took apples. 8 years. So, as you can see, I mean, I have dozens of incidents that all point to the same thing. If you don't have an open heart, if you play games with them, you're not going to have any success with them. People ask me about game cameras all the time. There's so many things I want to tell you about what a waste of time game cameras are. So I did it in Nordegg, where I put out apples. Apples are being taken. When Jeff Meldrum was coming around, I didn't dick around with that stuff because I knew there was something going on. When Jeff Meldrum was around, all that mattered, Game cameras can go to hell. All that mattered was that Jeff Meldrum saw a Sasquatch, and he did, because I didn't put out any damn game cameras. They kept taking apples, and I did it with a good open heart, and that's why he saw a Sasquatch. That and many other reasons, besides the fact that Jeff Meldrum is a wonderful, incredibly gentle, awesome man who earned that sighting because of his good open heart and his love for this species. But after that, after the Jeff Meldrum thing, I went in Nordegg, botched that all up because I put out game cameras and they don't come around. And you got to understand, you're dealing with the greatest trackers that have ever lived. If they don't watch you put the damn cameras out, they're going to see your tracks walking over the damn cameras. They're going to see the damn cameras sitting there with a little lens sticking out. You can't hide that. Maybe there are ways you can hide it. I'm not interested in that, because in that same year where I had that old Sasquatch, I actually call him like the shaman. He feels like he's really high up there. He's got really powerful energy. When I had that incident with him feeling everything from me, that same year, they were taking apples from me from a beautiful structure in radium. And I put apples up and I thought, well, I'm just going to be a little bit of an ass and put cameras up all over the place. And they didn't come anywhere near it. They came nowhere near that structure. So Sasquatch had been taking apples from me for years, completely stopped. And then I felt bad. I didn't know what the hell. I was still kind of naive and stupid, thinking I could trick my teachers, the masters of the wilderness, that me could trick and fool them and play with them. And I lost. And when I took those apples down, they were still so pissed at me that I put apples up next year, and they ripped that big structure down. I had no cameras up, and then they smashed the freaking apples in the ground, right? That's what they were saying to me. You pissed us off. And now, here in 2021, for the first time in 8 years, they started taking apples from me again. Ask me why I'm not going to put game cameras out. Because I don't need it. Because it's not going to be a good enough evidence anyways. Game cameras are good and interesting and whatever, but we're not going to do that. Not here. Because people are getting sightings. Because something better, something bigger is going to happen. And we need that bigger, better. So important, right? So James learned an amazing lesson from that. The other reason that I am very, very in tune with, and I like to always tell that story about the Sasquatch, when that day I reached for the camera. What am I gonna call that? That incident that happened. I don't even have a name for it. Just when the old guy came to me and he was gonna lead me back, so much was gonna happen. I just know other Sasquatch were gonna come around. I feel like I've been initiated into the group. I had an initiation ceremony about a year before that, and I was ready to go to the next level, and I botched it all up. But I'm ready this year. I know I'm ready. That's why I'm excited about 2022. But it's important that expeditioners know that story, because if they're gonna come out and film, their intention changes, right? Can you film a Sasquatch with an open heart? Can you film them just for the goodness of the cooperation of interacting with them? So there's that your intention changes, that a lot of expeditioners, in fact, all but one expeditioner, when they come out, they have no intention of filming, and this is their perspective, and I respect this. Are we going to get better footage than I've already recorded? Not likely. I've got amazing footage, and if we do get not as good a footage, or even as good a footage as I've gotten, people aren't really going to pick it up and believe it anyways. It's neither here nor there. And is it going to take away from their time to actually see a Sasquatch? You see, when you reach for your camera and you turn it on and you hit the button and you go to focus, that takes time. What if it's 2-3 seconds? Because I did have an expeditioner, the one person I told you about, who had a Sasquatch come out, and he did that, and the sighting was only about 4 seconds. So by the time his camera was on, blah, 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 the other expeditioners saw the Sasquatch, he set up his camera, and barely got a glimpse of it. Certainly didn't get any footage, but by the time his camera was recording, he looked up and saw it disappear, and that was the sighting of the trip. And he basically saw, a half a second to see it, pulled out his camera, and a quarter of a second to watch it disappear into the trees before he could ever get any shot of it. So what I'm finding is the vast majority of my expeditioners are just interested in their own spiritual journey, their own success, and seeing it with their own eyes, and not losing themselves in the moment, or even potentially never getting a sighting, because they're walking around with a camera with intentions, and that's something I have to work out. That's the conundrum with me, is how do I get footage and not have intentions to trick them, not have an intention to play the game. And I feel like I'm coming to that answer. I don't have it yet. I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comment. How do I get that footage? Because for me to get to the next level, the most incredible piece of Sasquatch footage is going to happen. I have to do something so amazing, so much better than the Patterson footage, so convincing that there is no argument with it. No one will ever look at it and go, wow, that's completely obviously a real Sasquatch, because you can't fake that. That is a goal of mine. But how do I generate that success? How do I precipitate that incredible piece of footage with an open, good heart? And I'm starting to feel that. I'm starting to get to that point. I'm starting to change and grow, but I don't know what the answer is yet, but I know the answer is coming to me. I'm on the journey of that discovery, and all these wonderful people that I work with, all these PhDs, all these James and Ashley and Kyle and all these new people in my life are helping me move towards facilitating that. And or maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's more I'm just looking for the next miracle, the next thing to bump this discovery process up to the next level, because I know the world needs this discovery, and this will bring us back to nature. And in nature is the preservation of the whole world, and the masters of the wilderness, which is what Sasquatch are, will help us preserve this beautiful environment and this beautiful planet. Thank you very much for tuning in to my Sasquatch, my Throwback Thursday video. I'll have a new video Sunday. I'm live every Wednesday. Until then, y'all take care. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.